Hi class, this is Dr. Kaufman and welcome to the third video for week 3 of Counseling Theories in the counseling program here at Grand Canyon University. Chapter 7 of the textbook is our target for this video, and that chapter covers Gestalt therapy. So before we get started with the content for this chapter, I want you to look at the collection of black images on the white background here. And I want you to ask yourself, if I were to reassemble these into an actual shape that my brain is able to recognize, what would that image be? Right now it's behind the orange square. I have it covered up. And if you'd like, just pause for a few seconds and think about that, because I'm going to reveal now in 3, 2, 1. The black images are a panda. And so as you can see, the rest of the lines that we would need in order to see the panda, they're missing, but the brain doesn't care. It actually can draw those lines mentally without having to see them in order to recognize that when those black shapes are rotated the proper way, you are in fact looking at a panda bear. And so that's one of the big concepts in Gestalt therapy, is the ability for the mind to understand that the whole is greater than just merely being the sum of its parts. That we are creative beings, that we're able to accomplish much more than we should be able to with the resources we actually have. And to believe in ourselves and find that success story and not just accept the failure or discomfort or unsuccessful story. So let's go ahead and move into the PowerPoint slides here. Gestalt therapy is the brain trust of Fritz Perls, and he's quite a character if you want to read up on him. And a lot of people actually get turned off to not existential, but the existential Gestalt kind of therapy because of who Fritz Perls is and how he comes across in his recorded conversation. However, he has a lot of really great ideas that have become a collection of therapeutic techniques that actually can be quite effective with different problem areas that we're going to be treating over and over with our future clients. So if you look at his quote here, "I do my thing, you do your thing. I'm not in this world to live up to your expectations, and you are not in this world to live up to mine. You are you, and I am I, and if by chance we find each other, it's beautiful. If not, it can't be helped." So if someone were to quit coming to therapy and allege that counseling is not successful, he'd look at them and be like, okay, whatever, I'm okay. I'm going to keep doing this therapy with other people, and I hope you have a good life. He's not going to get emotionally tied up in the, nuh-uh, counseling does work. He's completely fine just sticking to his own belief system and not worrying about other people. And so by extension, if people don't like Gestalt therapy and they're counselors in this field, he's not going to lose any sleep over that either, because he's using these concepts because he believes they work. In fact, he believes they work so effectively that he broke off from his early career in psychoanalysis because he believed that these ideas are more important for helping a client experience positive change in their situation, and that just dogmatically sticking to psychoanalysis because it has a lot of things published about it isn't the right thing to do. So Fritz Perls didn't worry about ruffling people's feathers. He didn't worry about how people experience his ideas. He just went about being him. And that's a good quality to have sometimes as a counselor. So what you want to remember about the basic philosophy is that humanity is growth-oriented. We don't want to stay still. We don't want to be stagnant. We don't want to squander our potential. We want to have thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that come together and create a complete package, which is who we are as people. And so that is a little bit of a cognitive behavioral therapy in the making, but it's a little bit different than that, even when you dig down into the roots of the theory. In Gestalt therapy, we relate to the human being as an organism, so there's a little bit of a biological influence there because we're looking at the whole person, holistic belief systems about who we are and what we are. And we also want to reinforce the creativity and individuality that a person brings to the table as we're trying to help them accomplish things through their therapy process. So look here at the image of the brain. We have the logical, mathematical reason and logic of the left side, the black and white, the rules of living in the world, and we have the creative, free-flowing, carefree right side with the colors and the creative expression, and not worrying about having perfectly drawn images and not worrying about staying in the lines. We're letting life just be messy and creative and wonderful. And so I think that the goal here with Gestalt therapy is to help the client to see that both of these modes of experience can be important and valuable, and to let themselves figure out what being yourself really means, whichever side of the brain tends to be dominant in your personality. Another thing that we have to remember is this is an existential approach to therapy, and so Maslow's hierarchy is there. We need to meet our human needs, the biological ones, the security ones, the psychological and emotional ones, and yes, we need to grow and become the best version of ourselves. That's our programmed imperative in our human psychology, and Gestalt therapy believes very strongly in that too. It also believes that we have to be able to push through the trying times and achieve success and not just accept failure. So if we want to go back to thinking about Yoda from the Star Wars franchise,
do or do not, there is no try.
So that quote is about not giving up and not accepting the idea that I cannot do this impossible feeling thing. And when Yoda is talking to Luke Skywalker and gives that quote, it's right before Luke is about to give up on something amazing that expands beyond what his brain tells him is possible. And then Yoda just walks up and does it. And so as counselors, we need to empower our clients to believe that their solution is possible, to take control of their abilities in all the different areas of themselves, their thoughts, their emotions, their goals, their drives, and to push past the failure, to be persistent, to sacrifice for the goal. All of you are in graduate school right now, and I'm sure you're sacrificing every week something just to do well in this program. Maybe it's going out with your friends or family for a meal and saying, I can't do that because I need to find my journal articles and start writing my paper. Or especially on the last day of the week when the assignments are all due, maybe telling those same people that I can't put something on my calendar because I know I'm going to be finishing up my assignments that night. Dedication, hard work, good habits. These are the things that we push through and we have to grab and seize in our sort of lifestyle in order to accomplish the greatest successes we're capable of. And Gestalt therapy is about helping clients to see this so that we don't put those boundaries and limitations on ourselves that remind us what we can't do. And we don't accept them, we reject them, and we focus on what we can do in the present right here where we're sitting. So let's move to the next part. The constructs of this theory is all about contact, and contact is sort of a state of being around a thing, not adding all the extra layers of frustrations, anxieties, emotional detriments, that we're just in contact, we're experiencing the thing as it actually is. We have our awareness and we're integrating it into ourself, and we're just being in that situation, in our universe, the place where we exist. And that we're using our presence in that situation to meet our needs, to develop our goals, to move forward towards the ultimate goal, which would be to experience full contact with ourself in our surroundings. And so we're always looking at the good and the bad and figuring out the best way to experience those polarities. Okay, so we're not running away from the uncomfortable things. We're accepting them as part of our world. That if you have light and you have darkness, you have a full day. It's not that we're trying to completely reject darkness and have 24 hours straight of light. That would actually drive us crazy. We rely on the cycle of the day to have a healthy experience of that 24-hour cycle. So think about it like that, sort of the yin and the yang, the polarities, the dichotomy and the contrast between success and failure, easy and difficult, good and bad. And so we're trying to accept the reality that is given to us by our environment and make the most of ourselves in the middle of that circumstance. That's what Gestalt therapy is pushing our clients to do. This graphic I actually show to my clients all the time for a lot of different issues: depression, addiction, anxiety, academic difficulties, relationship issues, all of them. This is something clients do not understand, this picture here. They think that counseling is going to show them the magic pill, and it's going to change their life from I always fail here to I always win here. And even if you have a really great strategy for life, this therapy, Gestalt, but also many other kinds of therapy, preach the idea that you have to persevere through the trials and tribulations, that failures will be frequent, discomforts will come often, and the client has to learn to push through them, to go into their toolbox of coping skills. Hopefully you're teaching them during the counseling process, and overcome and persevere, endure, and eventually triumph and seize that win that may come on a road that keeps winding, keeps changing direction, and has failures at many points. But the client will not accept it now because they're learning through therapy. They're learning about the gestalt of who they are. That failure is a part of life, and so too can success be. Wins and losses, triumphs and rejections. And so these things all come together to form the thing we call life. We need to teach our children not to give up and throw the controller when a level beats them. We need to teach our middle schoolers to stick with an elective even though maybe their friends are not in it, and it's just about learning a new skill. We need to teach our parents to take their screaming children to the grocery store and practice their parenting skills instead of just doing the grocery pickup. And you know why? Because that child who didn't go to the grocery store and the parent who never taught them how to behave in public, that child will not learn that lesson anywhere else. Everyone needs to experience that failure in order to go into later phases of life with the success and understanding how it should work. And we can't always be comfortable. Addictions happen, for example, because when things become uncomfortable, we enter into a high-risk situation, and then the triggers start flowing through our mind, and we start making seemingly irrelevant decisions that eventually do lead to the relapse, because every discomfort I experience feels like a failure, and I only see that road as being a fork where, oh, I'm feeling like a failure, so I ultimately will fail, so let's relapse. To heck with the whole thing. When a counselor is actually saying those difficult feelings are on a bumpy road that keeps changing directions, and at any point in that progress, you can choose to do the right thing. You do not have to relapse here. You do not have to engage in the depressive behavior here. You do not need to avoid and pretend that there is a version of today where there is zero anxiety. And so how do we change that decision-making process? How do we get the child to stick with a hobby, to keep trying through a difficult subject or a challenge or a level in a game? How do we get that parent to choose to be around their child in the tough situation and to elevate their skills as a parent instead of rejecting and choosing what is easy because we think that it's a fork in the road instead of a winding trail that randomly gives us the chance to fail or succeed equally? All right, that was a lot of stuff. Clearly, I have some passion about that previous slide. So let's get to how Gestalt therapy views the roles of health and dysfunction in a person's life. And you may have guessed this from some of the things I've quoted and talked about in the video so far, but healthy people live in harmony with the environment. So going back to Star Wars, balance in the Force, right? You have an understanding that nature is going to have days that are sunny, days that are rainy, days that are stormy, and even quite dangerous. And we cannot just bury our heads in the ground and stop existing when the rain and the storms and the dangerous times happen in nature. We're part of the reality during those times too. And so a healthy person is able to adjust and accept the environment as they experience it. They can change their self to meet the needs that they have from that environmental situation. So if it's raining and storming and dangerous to be out on the roads driving, then don't drive. Stay at home. Do something at home. If you have something that you need to do during that day, maybe prepare ahead of time and have a contingency plan. The word disease is actually dis-ease, as in you are missing the state of feeling at ease. And that comes from this theory. This is when a person is not at peace with their environment. They always want something that isn't there. They're always concerned and frustrated because of what is not. They're always trying to change the reality without having the power to do so. And they're always rejecting the situation that they're actually in. And so as a counselor, we're trying to help them accept and become in unity with the things that they're always in a tug of war from. If we're always generating that friction, then we're not going to ever be comfortable with the situation we're in. And so counseling is about helping people move in the healthy direction of that spectrum, accepting the life that they're in and doing the best with it that they can. Not always saying, I can't do my best because I don't have the right day. Saying, okay, this is the day, this is the starting point. How do I do my best in the confounds and constructs of today in my environment? As far as how therapy works in Gestalt therapy, you probably can guess by the kinds of things I'm talking about. No formal assessment. All right, we're just talking about the experience now. We're not talking about the past. We're not doing psychoanalysis. We're not talking about your relationship with your mom from 25 years ago. We're talking about right now, here in this office, what you're feeling on this day. We're going to focus on the present. We're talking about the here and now. We're talking about the goals you have for yourself at the age, at the state of your life that you're in. We're talking about what is happening being the best explanation, not about what could be or shoulda, coulda, woulda. What is happening and what do we do from there, right? We're not waiting to do this on a day that is not today. We're here to figure out how to do it now to make it happen. The counselor should actually frustrate the client at certain times, because clients are clients because they tend to have the opposite of some of these mindsets. So a counselor is going to notice that and maybe challenge them. You're being phony right now. You're telling me you want to do this, but what I'm seeing, what I'm observing, and what I'm hearing says you actually are not trying to do that. You're just choosing to be frustrated because you're saying you have a goal that you're not willing to back up with doing things in the present. And so you're challenging the client to see that, to become aware of that, and to figure out how to take today and start moving in the direction of doing that thing. And so that's what the counselor does. That's what the client is there to hear and interact with. We want to help them develop awareness and for them to become more sufficient and to see themselves as living in their environment with the feelings of freedom and choice. What are you going to do from this moment right now? A lot of times, clients will feel like they're stuck in quicksand, like their environment is dragging them down and preventing them from moving forward. What we have to teach them is how to overcome that quicksand and start pretending and moving through their day as if it is solid ground, that it is not a detriment to them, it's their starting point. And so the counselor sometimes can get so focused on this challenging kind of stuff that you might experience some countertransference. You do not want to be reactive and tear the person down. You want to be able to see things ahead of time, be proactive, and point out that, this is something that could happen. What are we going to do there? Have a plan, have a strategy, and help the client to see the best way to move forward with the situation they're in the here and now. Focus on the moment, the present. And we want to help the client, but we also don't want to get caught up in their nonsense, right? So if we have to be indifferent, we don't want to be super happy when they succeed, and we don't need to be devastated when they do not succeed. We need to have a healthy academic ability to show creative indifference. So if they have a back step, if they slide, if they don't do something right, we aren't going to get emotionally devastated with them. We're going to become creative and help them figure out how to move forward from the place where they are right now in the here and now. And another thing to think about is the theory of change. Sometimes we're going to talk about their life as if it is something that it is not, just to generate that belief in themselves and that motivation to be able to enact a change. So we want the client to begin to see themselves more objectively in their situation, but we also may need to do a little bit of healthy manipulation to get their mindset to, get a jolt to the system and be able to start seeing themselves differently and maybe jump ahead of a few steps to be able to see themselves as someone who is capable of change, who is not sabotaging themselves, who is imagining these situations that aren't real, and there's no reason to let them get in my way, to experience the change that I'm coming to counseling for. Now, the therapeutic techniques that we have, there's quite a few of them, and we've seen a lot of them before. But we can do a couple things here. We can talk about playing the projection. So the client is going to have some beliefs about their situation that may be accurate or inaccurate in their reality. And so we get them to role play that in the conversation with us. So you are the circumstance that you perceive is supporting you or blocking you. And I'm going to talk to you as the circumstance right now. Why are you having this impact on my client's day? And the client now has to defend that perspective and may realize that it's actually imagined. It's not there. It's just an excuse. It's something that's preventing them from starting the journey towards that success to weather the storm of all the likely and possible failures. We could also exaggerate or reverse the flow of the conversation, like, oh my gosh, that does get in your way a lot. There's no way you can overcome that. That's an exaggeration, right? You're getting the client to be like, what? You're my counselor and you're saying there's no way? Well, I mean, yeah, let's talk about that. So if this problem is really that big, I can't imagine anyone being able to move through it. So it's paradoxical in a way, but you're getting the client to realize, wait, but so you've never gotten closer to overcoming this? And then the client starts to think, well, actually, I have gotten close. And so they realize through the exaggeration that the problem is not quite as apparent and detrimental as they may have been sounding like it is. Also working with the polarity, the dark and the light, how we need both of them and they do different things for us psychologically, the good and the bad, and how there is going to be some tension and anxiety in everyone's day, and there's no such thing as an anxiety-free life or a stress-free life. These are good things to talk about with clients in Gestalt counseling. And another really great one is the empty chair or the two-chair technique, where you actually have the client role play a conversation that they need to have with somebody in their life. You can put an object on an empty chair and have them pour in the personality of that person to that and actually practice having conversations and just speak to that inanimate object, that pillow. Maybe you have a bobblehead in your office, or maybe you have something that you can use. So like here on my desk, if they have a person who persecutes them and creates turmoil, then I might put this Darth Vader bobblehead on a chair and have them pretend to talk to this person who is a persecutor in their life and practice talking to them about the kinds of things that they need to in order to make progress in their life, progress that they're talking about wanting in therapy. And so if you are interested in that, please research the empty chair technique and Gestalt therapy and use that as a concept in your paper if this is the theory that you're choosing to use this week for your assignment in the course. That's a really good way to understand the role of the counselor, the role of the client, the process of doing therapy with this format. And in fact, if you were here in the classroom with me, I actually have a video of this theory where we would get to watch the therapist guiding the client into this technique and using it for quite a large portion of the therapy session. And so it is important. You can even find some videos about how this technique works because it's confusing for a lot of new counselors. But once you see it work and you get a strategy for how to get the client to buy into the idea that this works, then it can be a great resource to get some role play activity that's very valuable happening in your counseling sessions. Now, as far as how we evaluate the theory, we don't really do research on it that has a lot of statistics involved. And really, the decision in the field is you either love it or you hate it. And honestly, I've had periods of time in my career where I did not like this theory very much at all. Once I started teaching counseling theories, I've really grown to see the benefits of these concepts. And if you can tell from some of the things I've talked about, I have a personal belief about what is valuable in this theory, just reflecting on the slides from this video. There is a couple of things to be worried about. There is an individualistic bias. So this theory, if you use it in a pure capacity, may struggle with more collectivistic minded cultures. and ethnicities. So you're going to have to modify some of the goals and strategies and the things you talk about to accommodate people who think a lot more about themselves as opposed to that individualistic succeed or fail mindset that a lot of counseling theories utilize, including this one. And then some lifestyles and orientations historically, Fritz Perls and other famous Gestalt therapists may have rejected certain mindsets, lifestyles, and orientations and things like that. So, of course, as an accepting person in modern society with ethical codes in mind in the way that we conduct ourselves in our practice, you're going to need to modify those historical perspectives in order to fully accept the person in front of you and conduct the Gestalt interventions the proper way. So this is the point in the class where we would do question and answer and have maybe a role play activity. Obviously, we can't do that in the online situation of this video. But if you have questions, please interact on them in the discussion forums before we end the course this week. Before this week of the course wraps up. And I just want to take some time. 3 videos this week, 3 theories, 3 chapters of the textbook. I want to thank everyone who's stuck with me for the 26 minutes of this video, and then week 3A and week 3B on the other existential and humanistic minded theories of counseling. And let's finish up the week strong, get your papers turned in on time, and get ready for behaviorist theories of counseling and psychology next week. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.